what is the most important document when it comes to sports governance in the country? The most important document for me is the National Sports Policy. If we want good governance, National Sports Policy must be the most solid document that we've got. And if you go and search for the National Sports Policy, you will find that we made one for the first time in 1984. I have tried the hardest to lay my hands on a copy of the 1984 National Sports Policy. Then in 2001, the National Sports Policy was formed by the then government, and it is in vogue even today. Things have changed. India has opened up a lot. Indian athletes have become fearless. They're able to compete with the best in the world. We have a number of world champions. We have a number of Olympians who have gone on to win medals. We have a number of Paralympians who have gone on to win medals. But our policy is still stuck in 2001. We need to change that document. We need to bring in a document that ensures that governance is not just national sports federations, it also percolates down to state associations, to district associations, to even clubs, to even the Sports Authority of India, the National Institute of Sport, the number of NGOs that are supporting sport now, because they're also getting in money from public sector. I think when we want transparency, when we want good governance, it should be across the board, not just for the National Sports Federation. I think we've spent a lot of time trying to rein in the national sports federations because our focus is shifted away from the two tasks that the National Sports Policy gives the country. One is to broad-base sport, that means work at the grassroots level, and two is to ensure that those who are high-performance athletes get the chance to excel at the highest level, both in the World Championship and in the Olympic Games. I think we've somewhere down the line, we've got between the two stools. We don't know whether we want to support grassroots sport, and we don't know whether we want only excellence. So you need the federations, you need the state associations, you need them to be working just right. You need them to get professional. I don't think it is going to happen by force of law. I think it has to happen because federations understand now more than ever that if you're not professional, if you're not able to raise money from the market, you will be a have-been. Nobody's going to bother about you. What is it that we can do to improve governance at the grassroots level? I think state need to take a lead. The National Sport Policy is the place which assigns roles to every organization. It should assign the state governments the primary task of working at the grassroots level. And I think that is where we are getting stuck. We need to work at the grassroots level. A national championship, for example, if it is an individual sport, has about 800 to 1,000 kids at the junior level. Is this all the talent that we should be looking at? I think we should look at more, which is why I like what the Athletics Federation of India does. It has got the National Inter-District Junior Athletics Meet for all districts. 600 districts send about 10 to 15 kids to compete in a national level tournament there. The standards are not the highest, but they're looking for talent. And I think if all federations can replicate what the Athletics Federation has done, ensure that every district is able to send some talent so that the talent scouts can watch them and nurture them later. I think it's very important that state governments understand their role. I think this is where we are failing. Our failure is not so much at the creamy layer. Our failure is in not ensuring that more and more of our children get to play sport. I think it's very important that we understand the value of movement and we allow children to play multiple sports so that they can specialize after 14 years of age. Of course, if you're a gymnast or a diver, you probably need to be 6 years old or 7 years old when you start. But I think it's very important that we allow our children more opportunities to play. How can that happen? I come from the municipal corporation system, and so cricket was out of the system for me. I had to play basketball at the YMCA, which was next door to home. And that camp at YMCA was run by the Municipal Corporation of Hyderabad. They would dump about 50 basketballs for 100 kids. No kid was whiling time away. Every summer, we got to see thousands of children in Hyderabad, 35, 40,000 children take to sport. I think if we can get back to that, the days of innocence, as Ashwini called it, if we can get back to that, we will probably find more talent and the creamy layer will be thicker, will be wider. And I think this is where we are as a nation today at this point of time. There are a couple of things that I've got in mind where I want to see change. Take the National Sports Code. It is the holy grail of sports governance in the country. High courts are completely immersed in understanding what the sports code is. The sports code is a set of instructions to national federation. It is not a document that says do this. You have to read hundreds of documents, and sometimes documents are overtaken by time. And I think this is where we are struggling as well. The National Sports Code needs to change. We've seen a couple of attempts. There was the draft. What was it called? It was called the Drafted National Sports Development Bill in 2013. And I think the then sports minister was forced to take it back from the cabinet. Then there was a national code for good governance in sports in 2017. It is still lying on the sports ministry's website. I think we need to act. We need to ensure that when we do these codes, we must ensure that they are followed across the line for everybody. I have seen some federations get away with not following the sports code, but some other federations have been forced to remove their president because they have outlived their utility. I think if government just ensures that the code is followed and not get into the actual enforcement of the code, we might see better days. There is this misconception, and I'm saying this on a large forum like this, that all athletes can become good sports officials. I think we will realize this mistake in the next few years, because it doesn't come to everybody to be a good administrator. Having been a great athlete doesn't mean you will be a good administrator. It calls for different skill sets. And I think India has made this mistake in the last few years of thinking that if you put in a good athlete at the top of a federation, you will get the results. That's not going to happen. You need a lot more than having one athlete sit at the top. You need to have a concerted plan for India to do well. And I think that is where the policies and codes are important. We must all understand our roles in the assembly line. And I think this is where state governments and district administrations have to play a big role. Don't look to nurture the elite athlete. Don't look to give the elite athlete more support because they're already getting enough from the central government. Look to support the middle rung state level athlete to go and play national championships, to pursue their dream. It doesn't have to be at the same level that TOPS is doing. It can be at a slightly lower level, but every rupee to an athlete can make a difference. And this is where state government need to invest in grassroots sport. I think there has to be some kind of consistency. And if we can make the sports policy the holy grail of sport in the country, we will succeed as a sporting nation. And that must include a lot more grassroots sport than it has at this point of time. We spend a lot of time in courts. It's time that we take this away from courts and have a national sports tribunal so that cases are resolved quickly. I know a case that's been pending from 2010. I don't think courts should allow that. I think we need a national sports tribunal that can come in and resolve disputes quickly. Also, we need an ombudsman to look at governance issues, not just with federations, but across the board. I think these are two factors that whoever is writing policy, if they can include this and ensure that we've got an ombudsman to oversee governance across the board and a sports tribunal to resolve sports disputes rather than go to civil courts where it's just a matter of dates and there is no resolution in sight. I think if we can do these three things, get a good policy, have an ombudsman, and ensure a sports tribunal, that policy should have grassroots. And I think if we can get that sorted, we will be a great sporting nation before long. Look at what happened in the Federation Cup, in which Neeraj Chopra, no less, okay, army man, Neeraj Chopra took part in the Federation Cup in Bhubaneswar. Look at how much crowd showed up for that event. You would be very disappointed. If Neeraj cannot draw crowds to a stadium, who will? If Neeraj cannot draw a broadcaster to showcase Indian athletics, who can? Will we want to watch middle level or as development level athletes on television? No. TV channels are not interested in doing that. They are running a business. And so if you are going to want to commercialize or professionalize sport, it's going to be a very uphill task in this country, primarily because our TV channels are taken by European football, by NBA, by Formula One. And I've always said this sport, televised sport from Europe is the new East India Company. I think as consumers, we have not protested enough. We don't write letters to the newspapers to say, can we have more Indian sport, please? But typically, when you open a newspaper, you will find European football dominating, half a page for European football. You want your name in the newspaper as a 14-year-old, as a 16-year-old, you want a name in the local newspaper. You want people to understand that. Now, without television, there is no commercialization. The market is not going to put in the money. And therefore, it's going to be very difficult. Look at the number of leagues that came up in the last few years. Wrestling had its own league, boxing had its own league, badminton had its own league, hockey had multiple leagues, football has got multiple leagues. Where are they? Are they producing champions? They're taking ready-made players and making them professionals, and they're burnt out by the time they play for India in the Olympic Games or in the Asian Games. They're getting burnt out. I think we need to find that via media. Unless you let the television company invest in the league, they take 33% stake in the league and promote it. And that is how Kabaddi has got to where it has. Has it produced players of excellence? I'm not very sure about that. I think sports administrators need to understand the market. They need to understand society. They need to understand what can work and what cannot work. They need to be willing to take risks by innovating products. And they look at the Pro Kabaddi League as an innovation. It worked really well. They came up with new rules. They had their own set of rules. They didn't follow the international rules. They made it more attractive for television. Now, that works. Other federations need to take a leaf out of this, take the best out of it. Obviously, you don't want to sell your product to a television station, give them stake, and then they end up controlling what is shown and what is not. I think it's important that they must learn to innovate. They must understand the market. They must understand what the market loves. Federations need to step in, innovate, understand what the market is all about, and therefore you will then be able to come up with products that can go out and be sold and that have got large audiences. When television first came into India, color television, 1982 Asian Games, we would wake up once in 4 years to the World Cup finals and we would get to watch the semi-finals and finals. 3 matches we would get to see. We would get 3 matches from the European Cup, basically 6 matches. And once in a while, if you got lucky, there would be a Manchester United game that you would get to watch. Today, there's an overdose of European football. Yes, there was a time where I would wait to watch a player like Zico or a player like Maradona. Today, Maradona comes and plays in my home every day. That is where we are making a mistake. We have brought in the best of world sport to the little television sets that we've got, or the big ones we've got. We have not innovated. We have not challenged that. And I'm not saying that this is a free market. Everybody is free to watch whatever they want to. How are you going to counter as a federation, as an organization, as government? What is it that you're doing to challenge that kind of a product and offer an alternative for Indian fans to go and watch? I think we are struggling there. If we cannot innovate, if we cannot package the product well enough, and nobody's going to watch domestic football unless you're a hardcore fan of football of a local team, you're not watching it. I think this is where federations need to wake up, ensure that they do some kind of packaging. They ensure that the players are smart, the players are ready to give the very best every single time they step on a field or on a court or on a field of play. I think that is where we are struggling. I'm not saying television companies should not be showing European football or American golf or Formula One or NBA. They're right to do that. But as consumers, I think we need to wake up and demand better quality sport from our athletes in the country. I think it's very important that we go back to those days where university sport, school sport, and university sport, scholastic sport, as I called it, was the fulcrum. Now, they are not run really well in this country, whether it's the School Games Federation of India or the Association of Indian Universities. They're not professionally run. They're probably the two worst federations in the country. Now, if you don't get the scholastic sports right, what is going to happen is if she's a 16-year-old athlete who's doing superbly in the 200 and 400 meters, he gets called by Corporation Bank or by ONGC or by Indian Oil or by Railways or by services, and they say, we'll give you a scholarship for 2 years, we'll help you with your sport. Her parents say, oh, this is a great idea, 75K a month, superb, yaar, let's sign up for this. She loses interest in education. Parents look at 75K, 50K and say, okay, let's start playing age group sport that the federations are conducting. So a scholastic sport, I think last 25, 30 years has lost meaning completely, even though we have tried to restore it with Khelo India game. I think if we get that back, you will have a larger pool of talent to look for, where they get integrated into the system, where they become part of the assembly line. At the moment, they are on a journey of their own, the School Games Federation of India and the Association of Indian Universities. Their focus is primarily to be able to send a few athletes to the World School Games and to the World University Games. I don't think they're really keen on developing India as a sporting nation. Learning is always a two-way street. And I'm sure that this will be the start of a movement that will ensure that we have a new national sports policy soon.